Hello and welcome to the Dyno Six Pack Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm your host, JJ Schultz, and I'm joined by my buddy, Corey. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Super Bowl's done here. Now we're officially in NFL draft season.
Yes, I know. It's kind of like, in a weird way, like the start of my favorite part of the season. Like, a lot of people are kind of like, okay, I can finally take a breath now, relax a little bit. It's just like, normally this is about the time where I kind of start digging into the rookies. And so I'm pretty far ahead of schedule this year. So I'm actually feeling like pretty good. Like I don't have to like just cram these next like 2 months to catch up. Like I'm like, all right, I'm doing okay actually for once.
Yeah, this is the off season of the NFL season is the dynasty players go-to season. This is where you got to make up your ground, man.
Absolutely. I mean, you can make moves now where people are kind of half asleep at the wheel that are going to set you up like perfectly moving forward there. So real quick before we jump into it, man, what were your kind of thoughts on the Super Bowl last night? Like, who were you pulling for, or what would you think?
I was pulling for the Chiefs, and so it was good to see them come back. It was a great game. That was the thing. It was just such a good game. The first 3 quarters or so were dominated by defense, and I think the defenses just got worn down because McCaffrey's running for 5 yards a carry and Pacheco's starting to pick up 5 yards a carry. Not big plays a lot, but just a really good game to watch. What'd you think?
I mean, same. So, like, I didn't have a dog in the fight. I'm a Cowboys fan. So, I mean, if anything, I was definitely leaning the Chiefs way just because, the 49ers are kind of one of our nemesis like the last few years here. But I just wanted a close game. And so, I mean, getting overtime, you can't really ask for a whole lot more than that. Several times it looked like the game was like one play away from kind of getting broken up in one way and, muffed punt or an interception, and then it's right back in it. So it was good. If the Cowboys can't win at this point, I'm like, let's just see how many rings Mahomes can stack up is kind of where I'm looking at it all.
He's off to a good start.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So today's what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be going through our top 5s at each position for each rookie position right now. Of course, we're still about 2 months away, so stuff's going to change, but things are kind of starting to come into picture, at least for me. Like I kind of got my first set of tiers done, so I'm kind of starting to get a general idea of kind of traits that I like about some of these guys, some of the things that give me a little bit of concern here. But before we do that, get into all that, guys, head over to fantasy6pack.net/plans. Make sure you become an all access member over there. You can come hang out in the Discord chat with us, where you can get individualized advice for your fantasy teams. Come chat with us. You can tag all the analysts and have 5 or 6 different people usually within a minute there responding to your question. Like I myself, I'm big on the football side, but I'm very much a casual baseball fan. So like even myself in there the other day, I pop in, tag the analyst on a trade question I have, and a little bit of back and forth, and boom, I end up getting a better deal than I was going into. So I mean, even me, I'm going to benefit from it. So you guys definitely could too. So yeah, fantasy6pack.net/plans. Come a member over there. All right, well, let's get into it here, and we'll kind of start with the most important position for our Superflex leagues here, and those are our quarterbacks. So I guess I'll just kind of start, and I'll kind of go through my top 5, then kind of go through yours and just kind of go back and forth a little bit on those. So at the top, I think both of us in lockstep there, Caleb Williams, right?
Still on Caleb Williams. Hasn't changed for me since last draft day got done when I initially came up with my list. Still Caleb Williams. I just see the creativity there, and he's the only one I think that could really be, I don't want to say a difference maker because the next one could be a difference maker too, but from day one, I think Caleb Williams could be a top 12 quarterback, unlike we saw to CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, just like the traits that he has, man, like some of like the throws that he makes, like off platform, moving under pressure. I think we've said this once before, but I mean, really the only flaw that I could really come up with is like there's times it seems like he plays hero ball a little bit, just holds it a little bit too long, just kind of tries to superhero it and do it all himself. But that's something that I think will get cleaned up at the next level. And in a way, like that creativity is going to be a benefit for him. So moving on to number 2 and 3. Last time we talked, I think we had the same 2 guys here, but I think we had them flip-flopped. I'm kind of following consensus here at this point still. I'm going to go Drake May number 2 and Jaden Daniels number 3. If I remember right, you have those guys flip-flopped, right?
I do. I love the fantasy floor that Jaden Daniels offers. And it's not that Drake May can't run, but the 4 games or whatever we saw out of Anthony Richardson where he wasn't throwing the ball particularly well, but he was still a top 12 quarterback just because the rushing upside is so high. And that's what I see when I see Jaden Daniels. I think the fantasy floor is so high because of what he's going to offer as a rushing threat that he bumps ahead of Drake May for me. Now, I think Drake May will be just fine. I actually think he's going to rush for more yards than people give him credit for. He has almost 1,500 yards rushing the last 2 years. Yeah. So he is not a zero in that aspect. But I also think that he's going to get drafted most likely by the Commanders, and at least year one, it's going to be tough. I just think that's not going to be a great fit. So I have Jaden Daniels 2. I have Drake May 3. But if someone wants to convince me that Drake May is their 2 option, I'm not gonna nitpick too much on that because I think they're absolutely in the same tier.
Yeah, I'm with you there. As I think so. We're both kind of the same there. Caleb tier by himself up top, and then those two making up tier 2. Yeah, so I'm same there. Rounding out here, I guess before we move on there, like just Jaden Daniels, like the Anthony Richardson comp, it's very interesting because I feel like there's a lot of like shades of the same when I was kind of watching their film where Jaden Daniels, like he never really wowed me as a passer. Like he made good throws, like he's an NFL level thrower, but he didn't have those plays that just like really like wowed me. But then you would see him break free for like 65 yards on a rush. And it's like, well, there's 6.5 fantasy points right there. Like who cares if he missed those last 2 throws? Like it's not even that big of a deal. Cause like just like the room of error it kind of gives you when you have a guy like that can take 3 runs and add an additional 12 fantasy points every single week. Like it's kind of hard to go against that when you see like Justin Fields, like what he's done. And I think like Jaden Daniels is probably a similar level of passer as Justin Fields is right now. So, I mean, you kind of see how that goes.
Yeah, that's a good comp right there, actually, for his passing ability. I think his rushing ability is Lamar and Kyler Murray, like that top end rushing ability. And yeah, he's not – Drake May is a better passer than Jaden Daniels, but for fantasy, like you said, it doesn't matter. We just want the points, and I think Jaden Daniels can just rack them up.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And it seems like he's kind of in a spot where he may end up in New England, but I've seen a lot of mocks too where he kind of falls a little bit lower and kind of goes to a little bit better spots. Like if you could throw him in with like Atlanta, like I would be all over that, like dropping.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So what was that?
I said just get him in that field there that's so fast, that Atlanta field with it being a turf field, and give him some offensive weapons around, and that could be real fun, real fast.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And then new coach there, so you don't have to worry about all the Arthur Smith stuff. Yeah, it'd be good. So rounding out number 4 and 5 for me, and this is actually about the end of my 3rd tier, so it just kind of worked out where it broke off evenly like that. But I have JJ McCarthy 4 and then Michael Penix Jr. number 5. Who are your 4 and 5 here to round it out?
We are the same. JJ McCarthy 4, Michael Penix Jr. 5. Since I came on this podcast the first time back when the season first started, I feel like I've been holding up a flag for JJ McCarthy, and I know that we've texted a few times together, and you saw the same things I did, and he's underutilized in a Michigan offense that has lost 1 game in the last 2 years. That's the thing. For Harbaugh did not care about showcasing JJ McCarthy's talent necessarily because they were winning games, and I'm not blaming him for that. But JJ McCarthy, the throws that he puts on tape some of them are ridiculous, and he is very athletically gifted, where he has a very high rushing upside as well too. So I have JJ McCarthy 4. I have not really wavered off of that. At times I've thought about actually pumping him up, but I'll keep him at 4. I think fantasy or NFL draft wise, I think his floor is the Broncos at 12. I think he's going to go in the top 12 picks at this point. It seems pretty likely to me. Penix, I still have questions about a couple things. For one, we still don't know the medicals.
Yeah.
There's just such a medical history there when he was with Indiana that I really, until the combine, we won't know that. But I still think there's going to be NFL teams that just are completely out. And he has a massive arm. He has some incredible rainbow throws down the sidelines, but he refuses to want to attack the middle of the field. He does not want to attack the middle of the field at all. And NFL teams they're really good. Like your cornerbacks in the NFL are really good. So you have to be able to attack all levels of the field. And he does not want to throw it over the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. Is he your number 5 as well too?
He's 5 for me. And there's a pretty clear break there. I don't think Penix is going in the first round of the NFL draft. And
I think he's going to go like Will Levis range, like kind of early day 2, I think.
Yep. I think Michael Penix, I think Bo Nix are probably going to go day 2. Bo Nix is my 6. I think those guys should go day 2. But that means that you're not guaranteed a starting job. Like you just said with Will Levis, he didn't get a starting job, right? He stepped in when Tannehill got hurt. But when Tannehill got healthy, I mean, there was times where they went with Malik at times. So Michael Penix should be drafted in a super flex league, but it's not in the same level where I think the top 4 players should probably go in the first round. And I don't think Michael Penix is a first round super flex pick.
Yep, I agree with you. I was texting with like kind of a group chat the other day about McCarthy, And weirdly, Penix is one of them, is a UW fan. And I was saying, I was like, I'm almost positive at this point that I think JJ is going to go. I said top 15, but I was like for sure ahead of Penix. And my buddy who's a Washington fan is just like, no way. Like there's no, like they won games without even doing anything. And I was just like, yeah, but like it doesn't matter who the quarterback was. Like they weren't going to throw the ball a lot in Michigan. So like you can't really hold that against him. But it was just the system they had going there.
Some of the plays that he can make, and they're like you said, they just didn't ask him to do it, and they didn't have to because they had a ridiculous defense, and Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards could just run the ball up and down the field. So I get why he did it, but some of the highlights of McCarthy, and I don't just like saying highlights, but he rarely, if ever, makes a poor decision, and he has a massive arm that can fit it into very tight windows, which Penix, you don't really see him even attempt to hit those windows. So they said he's just throwing these big balls up the sidelines to his. I don't like to knock people because he has great receivers, but I just think there's a little more projection in Penix. Whereas with McCarthy, I see it, and I agree with you. Top 15 feels pretty much like a lock to me at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah, like so many good quarterbacks coming in this year. It's a fun year to be a super flex drafter, that's for sure. Moving it over to the running back position, kind of the one position that kind of gets a little bit less love in the dynasty circles, but you still got to roll out two of these guys in most lineups. So you're going to have to be drafting them. And if you have a lot of second and third round picks, this is a good year for that. So for me at the top, I have like a pretty clear, same with like at quarterback, I have a one-man tier at the top. For me, that's Jonathan Brooks out of Texas. When he's like, obviously, he kind of has a knee injury, so you're going to have to watch that. He may come in a little bit slow, but when he is healthy, man, I just felt like there was a clear level of difference between him and every other running back in this class. Just he's so shifty, the balance, the vision. I think he's a guy that's going to come in, and as soon as he's back to 100% healthy, he could have like Breece Hall type upside, like in the right offense.
Yep, Jonathan Brooks is my number one as well. The knee injury stinks. I mean, that's simple as that. It sucks. I think he probably starts the year on the pup because of when he got injured. So I think you're probably for Fantasy Six Pack, I have an article coming out later this week, which is just some top players for kind of redraft and rookies. And I said, for redraft, I'm not sure you'll have to take him, but for Dynasty, he's my top running back too, because he is a 3-down option. And there's other players in this class that we're going to talk about that I just think are a little more not as versatile, not 3-down options, where they're a little more restricted in how they can help an NFL team, which restricts how much they're going to get on the field, which restricts how much you want to play him in fantasy.
Yep, I agree with that. Like a lot of guys here that seem like they can fill like one or two specific roles in an offense, whereas Brooks is that guy that can do a little bit of everything when he's fully right. Who do you have coming in for like your number 2 and your number 3?
I have Trey Benson at 2, the Florida State running back, and I have Bucky Irving at 3 at this point.
So we're in the same on that. I break it off another tier right there as well too.
I have my number 4 will be in that tier, but talk about Trey Benson. I love the contact balance. The speed he has for a running back that's his size is special. And the thing that I really like about Trey Benson is that he has a very tons of tread left on the tires. He has one game in his collegiate career where he has 20 carries. Florida State, we'll talk about Blake Corum, or at least I'll talk about Blake Corum a little bit here. And I just said Michigan gave him the ball over and over. Trey Benson, they didn't have to. They were such a good team that they didn't really have to do that. So he has a lot of tread left on the tires. And Bucky Irving to me is exactly what the modern NFL offenses want in a running back, where they can split him out wide, they can use him in the slot, you can use him as a traditional running back, but I see he's not the runner that Jahmyr Gibbs, but he is that level of pass catcher where if you told me that Bucky Irving as a rookie went out and caught 50 plus balls, I think that's in the realms of possibility.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you were telling me if I had to put money down now on like who has the most productive rookie season from a fantasy perspective, for out of the running backs, I think he's the best bet just because of that pass catching ability there. He could come in and just catch 40, 50 passes, and he's explosive enough that he's going to break a few of those, and he's going to win you a few weeks in fantasy there. So yeah, I agree with you there. And then for me at this point, at least, like, I think that there's a teardrop here, and there's like a pretty big drop for me, at least. Like the next two guys that kind of round out my list here, like those three are the only running backs that I'm like, if you're telling me in 3 years, like who is for sure still going to be like productive on a roster. Like those are my three that I take. Everybody else there, I think it's a little bit of a crapshoot. And it really kind of depends on the situation they fall into. So for me at 4, I got Braylon Allen, and then you mentioned Blake Corum. He's my number 5. I got 2 other guys that I would put into this tier as well, but that's kind of where I cut off my top 5. And I do think that I prefer Corum and Allen to the other 2 in the tier, but it's close enough that landing spot could definitely switch that.
Yeah, and so we just have 4 and fly flip because I have Blake Corum at 4 and Braylon Allen at 5. I think both of them, we talked about role specific. I don't really trust either of them to catch the ball a whole lot. Braylon Allen caught it a little more this year for Wisconsin, but he's got a little bit of a fumbling issue, which scares me. He's fumbled, I think, 4 times, two of his 3 seasons.
I watched like 2 or 3 cuts at him, and that was like a note I had. I was like, I think he put the ball on the ground like 4 times in the 3 games that I watched.
Yeah, he's got a fumbling issue, but it's Braylon Allen. It's the rare size, right? 6 foot, 240, something like that. 6'2", 240. He's
being that big too.
The only running backs in the NFL that are that size are Derrick Henry, A.J. Dillon, and Najee Harris. And he's going to be one of the 10 youngest players ever when he's drafted. He will play his entire rookie season as a 20-year-old. So I think Braylon Allen has a extremely wide range of outcomes where if an NFL, like, he's going to need an NFL coach and strength and conditioning coach to probably shed. I'm not sure that 240 is all muscle. I think a lot of that might be a little pudge on there, just shred it up a little bit. And I could see him becoming a pretty good, at least AJ Dillon level running back who, if he ever got like a starting role, could step up. But I could also see this flaming out and not working at all if he's not that fast and he's just kind of a plotter a la like Lendale White from a decade ago or something like that. And Blake Corum is such a productive collegiate back, but there are huge holes to run behind in that Michigan defense.
Oh yeah.
That Michigan offensive line, as I should say. That's part of it. Is it's hard to project him because the collegiate numbers are incredible. You know, he's also short and stocky built. I think he's 5'8", 215. And he has, because of that, he's so low to the ground that he breaks a lot of tackles. But I think it's another one where he's probably a first and second down back at the NFL level who's kind of capped on, he just doesn't have some of the upside that these other backs are going to offer. I don't, that's what I see with him. He actually, because he's not nearly as big, but he kind of reminds me of Najee Harris. He's just way shorter than him. But Najee Harris is just, it's never quite all come together for fantasy the way that a first round pick was expected of, because he doesn't really offer much pass catching. And I don't think Blake Corum's going to break off a ton of long runs. It's going to be a lot of 12-yard gains here or a 5-yard gain and just a lot of doubles. I don't see a lot of big plays, which means you're pretty dependent on touchdowns, which can be tough in the NFL. Yeah,
for Braylon Allen, like kind of the comp I made for him was kind of like a poor man's like LeGarrette Blount that catches the ball a little bit better. So you kind of got to have a very specific role, not only like for fantasy, but definitely in the NFL for a guy like that. And yeah, like Blake Corum, I mean, yeah, like you said, numbers off the charts, but you never really saw him have to make a lot of guys miss, just because by the time like he was getting contact, he had a full head of steam most of the time because he's already got a running start and the linebacker on skates at that point. So it's kind of hard to see, you telling me like, okay, you drop him into like, I don't know, like Isaiah Pacheco's role in Kansas City, like, okay, yeah, sign me up for that. But if it's something where he's running behind like not as good of a line, I have a little bit of questions there. And I know for sure, at least one of the guys that I'm imagining you're going to talk about later, like if they landed in a good situation, like I think that there's a chance that like he could easily outperform both of these guys here that we just talked about here with Allen and Corum.
Yes, I will. I'm excited to talk about him.
Yeah, I left him off of mine just because I figured you would bring him up. So we'll get back to that later here. But going to the pass catchers real quick out wide for the wide receivers. I feel like we're probably going to have pretty close to the same, for sure, top 4, if not top 5. But so I got Marvin Harrison Jr., and I got Malik Neighbors at number 2, and I actually have them in a tier. Like, I do think that Marvin Harrison is a better talent, but if from a dynasty perspective, like if I can trade back from 1 to 4 and then pick up an extra first and some additional assets, like I kind of feel like that's the move. If you're like a true rebuilder where like you're kind of in the beginning stages where you have a 101 or a 102 and you earn that pick, I think they're close enough that like I'm okay making that switch down and taking the slight dump down to get some extra assets on top of it. Do you think that's crazy, or like are you kind of on board with that?
That is not crazy at all. I think Yes, Marvin Harrison is the highest graded running back or highest graded wide receiver that I've had. And I think I started doing this in 2019. Malik Nabers is third on that list, though, only behind Marvin Harrison and Jamar Chase.
Wow.
And so I think Malik Nabers has all the potential to be a star in the NFL for years to come. In redraft, I mentioned I think both of them should go in the top 3 rounds. And for Dynasty, those are both top super flex league or whatever. Those are both top 5 picks and probably top 4 to me. I probably would take Jaden Daniels in a super flex ahead of that. But after that, if you wanted to take Marvin Harrison even higher than that, I understand. But those guys are stars, and Malik Nabers, if you were what you're talking about trading from 1 to 4 and picking up more assets, that is a genius move to fix a team that's rebuilding.
Yeah, I'm with you there here. So number 3 and 4 here for me, this is another tier break. And then after that, I think my third tier, I think I have like 7 or 8 guys in there. I think it gets kind of wide at that point. But for me, at 3, I have Rome Odunze and then Troy Franklin number 4. And like it's close enough for me here that I almost don't like calling Franklin a 4. Like I almost feel like it's a 3A, 3B. Like I feel like they both have such different skill sets that it really just kind of depends on what flavor you're looking for your offense. Like Rome Odunze, like one of the better contested catchers that I've seen in like the last couple of years that I kind of started watching rookies. He creates space and gets a little bit of separation, but not to like the level that Troy Franklin does. Like there were several like releases right off the line of scrimmage where Troy Franklin makes like a quick move and he's got like 5 yards of separation on the defensive back. And it seems like he's a little bit better working over the middle too, like across contact, which is weird because he's kind of the slider frame, smaller guy, but he's definitely a lot more comfortable going over the middle with it. But so for me, like when I did my first watch through, I actually had Troy Franklin ahead of him, and then kind of going back more, I'm like Odunze maybe a little bit more well-rounded, but like I don't think he has like that explosiveness in that top year that Franklin does, where if he lands on the right offense, I think that he could very easily like challenge for the wide receiver 1 in this class.
I'll talk on Rome Odunze. I think that Rome Odunze's size and his catching ability separates him from. So I actually have it as just a single tier. Rome Odunze is in a tier by himself for me, behind that top tier. And that's why I do that, because at 6'3", I like the size. I like his hands ability. I actually have Troy Franklin down at 7. So I don't have Troy Franklin in my top 5. Now, I think Troy Franklin could easily be a first-round pick. All the things that you said, he is extremely explosive. I just have a hard time judging some of the things that the Oregon offense does. Yeah. Because they create big lanes, and that's the Jalen Hyatt thing from last year. And I was a little lower on Jalen Hyatt because Tennessee creates huge space for these guys. So I think Troy Franklin would be great. If you told me that you were talking about Kansas City draft and Blake Gordon, if you told me that at the end of the first round, Troy Franklin got drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, I will push him up 3-4 spots on this list because I think that would be a great fit for him. But I think that Troy Franklin, in my mind, a little more scheme dependent. Receivers that are 180 pounds, I just have a little bit of a concern with that. But Troy Franklin is extremely explosive. My 4 is Brian Thomas. Okay. He's my number 5. Okay. So I love what Brian Thomas offers. So once again, 6'4", 205. I like the size. He is the number 2 receiver in name only to Malik Nabers. Malik Nabers is the underneath option. Brian Thomas is the big X receiver. Yeah. He can go up. He can go over defenders and to make catches, but he can also pick up yards after the catch. I think Brian Thomas, to me, when I watch Brian Thomas, I see T. Higgins. That is 100% who I see is T. Higgins. That's really good comp. Yeah. Okay. I like that. I think that Brian Thomas, to me, is a locked-in first-round pick in the NFL draft and someone who should go in the first round of Superflex drafts too. Yeah, I mean, I think that most years he goes higher. Like I was a huge fan of Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison, but I think if they were in the same class, I'm going Brian Thomas probably over both of those guys most years. I wish I could remember who it was, but I saw somebody tweet out like just like a perfect gift, and it was kind of something that like I felt like I noticed too, where it was like the Brian Thomas story where it had like 5 or 6 clips in a row where it showed him getting in a break, being wide open, but like as he's coming out of his break, getting space, like Malik Nabers is coming like 3 steps ahead of him, already open. He's like, so like always open, just not quite as fast as Malik Nabers. And that was basically like the entire story for him this year. That LSU team is amazing. That LSU team that they were able to put together had some impressive. That's 3 LSU players we've talked about here already. I mean, yeah, between them and Texas, man, they could own the draft this year. Mm-hmm. And then did you say who your 5th was? My 5th is still Keon Coleman. I've seen the knocks on some of the separation, so I went back and watched it. And yes, he does struggle to separate at times. he has a very good release package. So if he gets off the line of scrimmage, if you try to bump him, he's going to get by you, and then he'll be open instantly. But if you're just going to say, I'm playing man coverage on him, and I'm going to let him beat me with his route running, he struggles at that. I do think an NFL coach can take this 6'4", 215-pound freaky athlete who played on the Michigan State basketball team while he was there. That's how good of an athlete this is.
I guess I didn't realize. Wow.
And he can pick up yards after the catch. He can pick up a contested catch with him. There's no 50-50. It's like 65-35 when the ball's in the air because he's that physical. I still have Keon Coleman at 5. And yes, I understand there is a deficiency at separating at this point, but I'm going to take the chances that this massive human being who can run like the wind is able to figure out a little bit more in the NFL level.
Yeah, it's not the best comp because I feel like the body sizes are not the best, but like his playing style a little bit kind of reminds me a little bit of like end of career kind of what we've seen the last few years from DeAndre Hopkins, where like he doesn't always have the most separation, but he's got his ball skills and his ability to go up and get it. Like he can overcome that. I feel like Keon Coleman has similar vibes that like, kind of Des Bryant light vibes a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, those big receivers that are physical, and you said maybe you're not super open, but if you're catching the ball with your hands away from your body, you don't necessarily have to have that much separation. And Keon Coleman has great hands. That's the thing. You go back and watch. We'll talk about LSU again here. That LSU versus Florida State game from week 1. There's times where he's not that open, but he's catching the ball. And then there's that one slant play, and I think it was the third quarter, where he takes it and he breaks 2 tackles and he's gone. He runs like a running back with the ball. So I still have Keon Coleman at 5. I get having Troy Franklin up there. I can listen to arguments for Adonai Mitchell up there. If you wanted to make that case too, I have AD Mitchell at 6. So really good receiver class, man.
Yeah, agreed with you there here. Let's move it over to the tight end class here. We'll go a little bit quicker on these ones. Obviously at the top, I mean, no clickbait here. We will have Brock Bowers, I'm assuming there. I'm pretty sure last time we talked, like you're all in on Bowers basically, right? Like being like superstar.
If it's a tight end premium league, I'll take him a size 2. I would be willing to take him that high. If you're getting an extra premium for a tight end, I think that's possible. I think right away, now a little bit, all tight ends are a little bit team dependent where he gets drafted to. If he's up with a team like Tennessee pretty early, I would love that fit for him. I've seen a lot of talk of him going to the Chargers. Harbaugh didn't always use his tight end at Michigan, but he didn't have a weapon like Brock Bowers. So for redraft, I think he's a top 12 tight end as a rookie. And for Dynasty, he will probably be my tight end 3 behind Laporta and Mark Andrews right away in Dynasty drafts.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably about right. I have Trey McBride number 3 behind those, and that's
McBride. Yeah,
that's probably about right.
It's going to be close, though, somewhere in there.
Yeah, agreed there. So I guess like I know one thing here. Like I feel like I know for me myself, like I'm ready to get hurt again, so it's not going to stop me. But I know a lot of people have been burned by Kyle Pitts from a few years back. If that's not high rookie pick in him, I guess what would you say to kind of like ease those people's fears that are kind of still maybe a little bit gun shy from pulling the trigger on top 5 pick tight end a few years ago who was supposed to be generational? I guess what would you kind of say to them?
I feel your pain having pulled the trigger on Kyle Pitts in multiple dynasty drafts and still rostering Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts went out and had a rookie season where he set the record for yards, and then the offense changed around him. And so that's what I'm saying, where even the best tight ends are very dependent on how the team is built. Now, Arthur Smith is gone. I think Kyle Pitts is probably going to be a deal in a redraft league this year. And if you wanted to buy low right now on a Kyle Pitts in a dynasty league, this is probably the time to do it because it can't get any worse and it could be a lot better. We've already seen him have one of the best seasons ever for a tight end.
Yeah.
Brock Bowers, it's the same thing. I'm going to trust the talent to win out here. We've seen it with Kyle Pitts have one great year and then it went downhill, but I think he's probably going to be fine again. And Brock Bowers, I'm just going to trust the talent. And I think it is a lot of talent there. So I get it. I felt the Kyle Pitts burn. I'm stuck with him in a couple leagues, but I feel pretty good about that. I never sold low and I will continue to say down to sell low there and draft Brock Bowers early because he's really talented.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those the Kyle Pitts people that have drafted him. Like it's kind of like one of those like I will die before I sell low on him at this point after how long I've been holding and everything on him. Very much the same there. So for me here in tier number 2, I actually have three guys here in tier number 2 for me. My guy at the number 5, I feel like I can almost throw him in here. It's close enough. But for my tier 2, number 2, I got Jatavian Sanders, Cade Stover number 3, and then Jaheim Bell number 4. And he's the one that was kind of on the edge for me, maybe dropping down a tier. But how does that compare to your kind of 2, 3, 4 there? And then what does your tier breakdown look like?
So I have Javian Sanders in his own tier at 2. I think that his athleticism is at a different level than these other tight ends that we're going to talk about. And so I think that for fantasy, he can go out and be a 50, and not maybe his first year, once again, it depends on where, but at some point I could see him having a 50 catch type of season out of a tight end. I think he's got that within him. My Cade Stover is 4 for me. So I have Cade Stover at 4. That's a different tier. This would be in my tier 3, and Jaheim Bell is 5 for me. I like Cade Stover. He's just really solid. An NFL team is going to love Cade Stover. He catches the ball well. He blocks well. NFL teams are going to love that. Yes, kind of. Jaheim Bell is just such a hard projection because this is a 6'1", 205-pound tight end. That is smaller than a lot of the receivers we talked about. Mm-hmm. He is smaller than Keon Coleman. He is smaller than Brian Thomas. He is smaller than Roma Dunze. So is he really a tight end? Probably not. He is a H-back weapon, which means he is going to have to fall into the right spot. If he get drafted by a team like San Francisco, I would love it. But if he got drafted by the wrong team, I could see that being a very low floor of him not even touching the field a whole lot. So that's my concern with Jaheim Bell. But for fantasy, could it work out really well? Yeah, because he's basically a receiver playing that gets qualified at tight end, but a team has to realize that when they draft him.
All right, makes sense to me here. Who is your so we skipped over number 3, is that right?
Yep, my 3 is Ben Sinnott from Kansas State. I think that he is 5, okay, so we flip a little bit, but he is when I watch him, I see Chris Cooley. You remember him back from the Redskins at that time, now the Commanders, but just this H-back where you see him, he'll line up at fullback, he'll line up in line at tight end, they'll play him in the slot at Kansas State, and he just gets consistently open. You just watch and he's creating separation. He catches the ball well with his hands. There isn't going to be the big plays. That's the difference between that tier 3. And I think Jatavian Sanders could average 12 plus yards a catch as an NFL player, because I think he can get down the field a little bit, and Brock Bowers can get down the field too. But that's what I see. These other tight ends are more underneath options, which I would have said that about Sam Laporta going into the year 2 from what I saw at Iowa when he was in college. So it can be hard to project tight ends to the NFL level because it's hard when you watch them in their collegiate offense, because Ben Sinnott is not asked to get down the field for Kansas State. So can he do it at a different level? Is there something else there? Maybe, but for now I keep him at 3 because it's just not quite as much downfield upside for me.
Yeah, he's like violent when he runs too. Like he looks like he runs like he's angry at people after he catches it. Kind of that's interesting. You mentioned like him playing in line a little bit or at fullback. Some of the stuff I've been reading about him that like I really like about him also kind of could be a negative. And I've seen some things that the team is saying they would take him and convert him to a fullback, which at that point for fantasy, that's going to very much limit his upside here. I think that's kind of why I have him down a little bit. But at the same time, like the fact that he can get the ball and run like that to the point where they put him at fullback, I mean, that is exactly why you like a guy like that can catch and just take off like that. So I have him at number 5. He is like I got him, Bryson Nesbitt, and then Dallin Hawker, and kind of rounding that tier with Sinnott there for tier 3 for me.
I have. Can I ask where you have Luke Lachey? Do you have Luke Lachey in your? Is he at the next level for you?
I don't think I've got to him yet. No, I don't have him done yet.
Okay, that's fine. I have Nesbitt in that same tier and Holker, and then I have Lachey there too from Iowa. I'm actually not entirely sure that he's coming out though. I've been trying to find a lot of updates on that, and I can't find it, so I could be wrong on that.
Okay, I mean, yeah, it's one of those. I've been trying to make sure like they actually have declared before I look into them. So
sure,
have not got to him, but I'll report back. I'll put him down and I'll report back on that one.
Thank you.
So me and you, we've done 4 mock drafts now already for rookies since the season ended. Like at least
you're doing great getting those going, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty fun. Like pretty much when we decided to do it, it's filled up that day. Which I guess any of you guys out there, if you want to do any rookie mock drafts, hit me up. I kind of just have like a mock league on Sleeper that I have. I think we have 18 people in there now. And when we want to do a mock draft, I just post it in there and fill that bad boy up. But so early on here, who are some of the guys that you're seeing going like round 2, 3, maybe even some cases round 4, who you're finding like, okay, if this price holds, I'm going to be all over these guys once draft season comes around.
So I'm going to talk 2 running backs here. These guys are not in my top 5, but they're not far out of it. Jalen Wright is my 6.
Yep.
Big fan. I've been texting you for a while.
That's Tennessee.
He is my boy. And I've been getting him in the 4th round of these. And I kind of love that value. Once again, I said it's hard to see some of the stuff with the way that Tennessee's offense runs. It's so wide open. That's my only concern. But otherwise, I love the vision. He hits the hole really hard and gets downhill in a hurry. That is what I want. On a one-cut runner who gets downfield and picks up the yards there, do not waste time in the backfield. NFL teams hate it when someone chops their feet in the backfield, and he doesn't do that. So I have Jalen Wright. And then the other running back that I want in the mid-rounds is Ray Davis out of Kentucky. Another one, just does not waste time. He gets what's blocked for him. If he played like Blake Corum on the Michigan line, he'd run for 1,800 yards at college. He would have ran for 1,800 yards in college because the blocking that he's got is nowhere near that, but he sees it and he hits the hole so fast, and then he fights for every foot out there. So I think an NFL team will love that, and I want him on my fantasy teams in the mid-rounds because I could see him becoming a kind of a workhorse running back, at least a 2 down, and he can catch it a little. So pretty early, within a couple of years of his NFL career, I could see him getting a spot where he gets quite a bit of work.
Yeah. So I have Ray Davis on my list as well, too. My guys are like here. I think I've grabbed him at like 208, 209 in a few of these drafts. And it's just like, man, that's crazy good value. I think that there's a case that like, if you're telling me to pick one sleeper out of this class who ends up kind of being the out of nowhere running back one, I think he's the guy that has the skills. I just don't know if he has the pass catching ability as some of the other guys around him. But as far as running backs that do have pass catching ability, one of the other guys I like here is Will Shipley. You get him in the 3rd round quite a bit. And he's another guy that like can actually get lined up on the outside and run like actual wide receiver routes. Like it's not just kind of like your basic little ends and your little slant routes. Like he can actually get out there and run a little bit of a route tree. So just for fantasy, gotta love those guys that can get out wide and catch passes. Michael Pratt for me, I have him in the same tier as Bo Nix. Obviously, that's more of a super flex play in one quarterback league. Unless he gets surprise capital, probably don't need to worry about him at this point. But then there's a couple receivers here that I have gotten later than 204 multiple occasions, and they're Texas teammates, and that's Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. Man, like it's crazy. Those guys are going like mid to late second in some of these drafts, which I feel like that's not going to hold up by the time we get through the draft. Because I feel like they're both going to get day 2 capital at worst. But yeah, I think the other day we did a draft and I was out of the 4 spot and got Xavier Worthy at 204, then Keon Coleman at 304. And I was just like, hell yeah, man, sign me up for this in a real draft. Like
bank that all day, man. Yeah. AD Mitchell, I said my receiver 6. I think he's fantastic. And Xavier Worthy, he might run the fastest time in the entire NFL combine. He very well could do that. He's another one. If he lands in the right system, Kansas City, Miami, where he's just gets the opportunity to do what he's best at, which is really short routes behind the line of scrimmage and really deep routes. He's not going to make a whole lot of plays in the middle of the field, but if he finds a system like that, I could see Xavier Worthy being fantastic in the NFL. He is extremely thin, but he has a skill that not many people can be taught, which is one of the speed that he has. I actually have a couple of receivers down too that I like in the mid rounds. Ladd McConkey, he just gets open, and if you told me like first pick of the 2nd round, Carolina took him, he's instantly their best receiver. I think he could get 100 plus. I think he would get 130 targets his rookie year.
Jalen Waddle year level targets.
Yep. I think he was great. And late in these drafts that we've done, Jamari Thrash, he's another one. I love Jamari Thrash. He gets open underneath, and an NFL team is going to love the separation he creates. I could see him playing from day one. He is a better version of Pop Douglas, and that's not Pop Douglas was looking pretty good at times for New England this year.
Yeah, like a wide receiver 3 or a flex for Dynasty.
Yep. So I've been getting Jamari Thrash late in the drafts we've done, and I like it every time.
Yeah, those are good ones there too. So any other guys that are kind of stuck out for you so far? Obviously, we're still kind of early. Any guys that you're finding like, oh, I'm clearly higher, I'm clearly lower than kind of the consensus? Any guys kind of standing out for you at this point?
I'm going to go with it. 2 that I'm lower on. I do not get the love for Xavier Leggett from South Carolina. I don't get it. He is We saw him 3 years at South Carolina be a non-factor. And then his senior year, he blows up. And that's awesome. Congratulations for you. And then there was talk of, okay, well, he's 6'4" and he's 220 and he can hit 22 miles an hour. Then he got to the Senior Bowl and he was 6'1". So the 6'4" on the South Carolina listed at him, it was low. 6'1" is big, but that's not
big too. He plays bigger than that.
He does. But if there's a guy that struggles to separate, to me, that is Xavier Legette. Yeah. And this is not the athlete that Keon Coleman is. He doesn't have the hands that Keon Coleman does. I think I don't get. He's gone very early in some of the drafts we've done. I would much prefer. You mentioned A.D. Mitchell, Keon Coleman. I will take them over him all day. I would take Ladd McConkey over him all day. Yeah, I just don't see that. I don't see the upside that people seem to get with Xavier Legette.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing. I think I have him at like wide receiver 11 or 10. So I'm going to come in a little lower than him. I kind of mentioned Bo Nix. I have him in the same tier as Michael Pratt. So I find I'm a little lower on him, but I've been lower on him like the whole time. Like when people were talking about at one point, like top 10 pick for like a few weeks there, I was just like, man, am I like freaking drinking something? Like what is happening? We touched on real quick, Keon Coleman. Like I said, grabbed him in the 3rd round. Like I'm finding I'm higher on him than consensus. I think he's a 2nd round talent for rookie drafts at least. And then so the other 2 guys I wanted to talk about, one guy that I'm finding I'm quite a bit higher on. And he's like one of the more explosive guys I've seen with the ball in his hands after the catch. That's Malachi Corley. Like, give me him over Xavier Legette. For sure.
Yeah, I like Corley too because, like you said, you get the ball in his hands and you see what happens. Runs like a running back. That is basically what they asked him to do at Western Kentucky was catch balls. He had one of the smallest ADOTs I've ever seen, but that's because that's the way their offense worked. They just wanted to get the ball in his hands. I really want to see him get drafted by Miami. I think that would be a fantastic fit for what his skill set is. Who's the other one? Sorry. Go tell me who your other players that you said you were higher.
The other one that I'm going to be lower on, and this is one I kind of wanted to pick your brain on a little bit, because I've seen some people talking about this guy clear as number 1 at his position, and that's Marshawn Lloyd from USC running back. Where he is going in drafts, like it is just way more expensive than me. I think I have him down at like RB9 right now. Like definitely give me Ray Davis over him. Will Shipley, I'll take him. I'll take Jalen Wright. Give me the pass catchers. I don't know that I see it with him, and maybe it's just kind of the USC offense being a little bit of a mess. But yeah, I'm finding I'm lower. I'm probably not going to end up with any shares of him if it sticks how it is right now.
I actually have Marshawn Lloyd right at 9. I just pulled my rankings up. He is 9 for me. I have the guys you mentioned. I have Audric Estime ahead of him. I think that's one of the guys we didn't mention. I have Audric Estime ahead of him. Marshawn Lloyd, my big concern with Marshawn Lloyd is, first off, he's never been asked to do any type of a workload, whether it was at the original South Carolina, where they should have probably, if he was such a big talent, why did they not give him the ball more? And now at USC, he just did not get the ball a lot, which, okay, you had Caleb Williams. I get it there a little bit, but I like his footwork. He chops his feet very well, but he's not very explosive. He drops passes. So I'm fine with where I have him ranked. If he fell to me in the 4th round of a dynasty draft, I'd probably take that. But I'm not going to reach up ahead of other running backs either to take a guy like Marshawn Lloyd.
Okay, well, I'm glad I'm not just completely alone on that island. Then, yeah, there's like some, like I believe like Jeff Bell from Football Guys, like I want to say he has them like in contention. I think he said for his RB1, and I'm just like, man, like maybe I'm just missing something. But yeah, I'm a little bit lower on him. There's one guy I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on too before we went, and it's a little bit one of those where it's a little bit near and dear to my heart as a North Carolina fan. But Devontae Walker, I just this tale of just like 2 different players. It seems like when you watch him on tape, like he's inconsistent, but the big plays are there. And then you kind of think, oh, he may not run a great 40, but then at the Senior Bowl, you see him there, and they had, I forget, like Tiger Shark or whatever, like the tracking company is, and they said that he had the highest actual on-field speed out of any wide receiver out there, and that he was just kind of moving on a different gear. So what do you think about Devontae Walker? Where are you kind of looking at him as everything sits right now?
Yeah, I have Devontae Walker lower, I think, than most. He would have been one I could have brought up. I have him down at wide receiver 14, I believe, right now, behind some of the guys we mentioned, Ladd McConkey, Malachi Corley. I have him right below Jamari Thrash. So he has a ton of upside because of some of the things you talked about. Big, fast. He struggles with some drops. At times, he has struggled with drops. Now, it's good that we did get to see him at North Carolina, because otherwise he also would have the smaller school knock if it would have just been Kent State. But this is a North Carolina system that produces wide receivers. The way I know they transitioned away from their last offensive coordinator who went to Wisconsin, Phil Longo, but it's still running a similar type of offense where it feels like they funnel targets towards one receiver. And in college, Devontae Walker worked. I think he's a day 2 NFL draft pick.
Okay.
And if you wanted to shoot for upside in your fantasy draft, if you told me you wanted to take him ahead of, I think the upside with Devontae Walker is higher than Corley. It's higher than Jamari Thrash, who I have ahead of him. I think it's probably higher than Ricky Pearsall, who I have ahead of him. But I think there's some downside there too, where if you drop the ball a lot, here's my concern with Devontae Walker is I watched that Senior Bowl, right? He's getting open deep, and a couple times the ball hits him in the hands. That's a little Marquez Valdez-Scantling-y to me, where you get open deep, and if you can't catch the ball, you can't catch the ball. It's simple as that. That's the most important thing. So I have Devontae Walker a little lower, knowing that the upside for him is higher than some of the players above him.
And were you at the Super Bowl, or not the Super Bowl, the Senior Bowl?
I did not get to go. No,
I go this year. I know. I didn't either. I was thinking about it, but I bought Expo tickets this year. I can kind of like convince my wife I get like one big football trip a year. It seems like so. I'll go with the Expo on this one. Any last kind of rookies you wanted to touch on here? You want to wrap this up?
Can I ask you your thoughts on Javon Baker? Did you do Javon Baker from Central Florida? So I have Javon Baker pretty high, I think. I have him at 17. He had been at Alabama and transferred to UCF. And when I went back and rewatched it, I like a lot of what I see out of Javon Baker, where he can win at all 3 levels. He can get open deep. He can get open underneath. So I have him a little bit below like Devontae Walker we talked about, but I am intrigued by him at least.
So I have him, let me see here. So he's in my group where I've only gotten to like 1 game on, so I don't have probably the most well-formed opinion, but I have him in like a tier. Let's see who's in there with him. So I have him in there with, looks like Luke McCaffrey, Brennan Rice, Jamari Thrash. So kind of like Ricky Pearsall. So kind of in that kind of range right outside of like the top 12, I would say.
Yeah, so we have him in similar. I have Thrash and Pearsall a little higher, but we have similar names around there because I have Brendan Rice there. But when you watch a little bit more film, you text me on him because I'm intrigued by what I see out of Javon Baker.
Okay, yeah, I'll put him on my list next. I just finished up writing like a 4-part article series, so now it's just rookies for the next few weeks. So yeah, so I guess on that note, what do you have coming out on the site soon? Like it's probably about to get real busy for you between baseball and then the college and the NFL draft. Like you're going to be pumping out a whole bunch of stuff, I'm sure.
So recently I did Undervalued, I believe, are out on the site already. The sleeper pitchers, the bust pitchers are coming out sometime this week. And then later this week, early next week on Fantasy Six Pack is some of the players we just talked about. Top 4 quarterbacks, I believe, top running backs, top receivers, and just 1 tight end, just Brock Bowers. But yeah, if you want to talk more, I just kind of a teaser of what I think with a little bit of stats in there. But if you want to talk more about us, come join up and we'll talk. We have a lot more ranked than that. I just didn't want to spoil everything for everybody.
Yeah.
So
oh yeah, we
join up.
We could, the rate we're going through just top 5s, we could probably get 5-6 different shows and just trying to work our way down the ranks with all these guys for sure. Yeah, so for me, I don't know the exact date. It might be tomorrow, potentially, maybe the first one coming out. But so I went through at the end of the season. The first thing I like to do is I redo my entire set of veteran dynasty tiers. So I kind of like to step back, see, all right, where does everything sit? As you know, the Super Bowl is over, so 2023 is no more. So we are on to 2024. Where does everything sit now as we head into the free agency and into the drafts and all that? Because like we mentioned earlier, this is the time of year where the dynasty owner, you can really make some moves that'll set you up nice for the future, and especially when you get guys that are kind of half asleep at the wheel. So I go position by position there. Top 65 quarterbacks, 60 tight ends, 100 running backs, and 125 wide receivers. So 350 players total. So I'll have 4 different articles that kind of go through and breaks down my tiers and kind of how I view the different tier breaks and different strategies. I have contending targets and rebuilding targets to trade for in each tier on the way down. So I think it'll be a good series. I think people find a lot of value in it. And then it's nice because then I have that set up. So once the NFL draft happens, it's just kind of sliding the rookies in and moving up and down the big winners and losers. So I'll have that coming out and then back next Monday again for another Dynasty show.
It's such a great show. I can't wait to read your articles.
Appreciate it, man. But yeah, so I'll definitely tweet those out there. Like I said, if anybody out there is wanting to hop in some mock drafts with us, like, just let me know, hit me up. I'll get you that secret link so that way you can hop in some of those. They feel quick though. So just know on that. But yeah, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you guys, like we said, fantasysixpack.net/plans. Come hang out with us in the Discord. We'll help you out with your teams. Corey, man, I hope you have a good night. Appreciate you stopping by to talk with me.
Anytime.